Follow me. I think about going on a group hike, say, and someone pulls out a map, or maybe they've been there before, and they say, follow me, I know the best path. Well, then you have a decision to make. Do you trust this person? Can they read a map? Do they judge distances well? Are they not going to get you lost? If it's right, then you can get in line and be led down the trail. And if that goes well, this person may be able to lead you on a path, a route to some wonderful places. Maybe places you wouldn't have found yourself. Follow me. Before I was ordained, I was a youth minister in a congregation in California. And this particular congregation was an interesting place. It had been through some really difficult internal conflicts and had a period of decline, and they just hired this new visionary rector. And so I got a front row seat to see how is this going to play out. And this guy came in, and he started to make some changes. He made changes in the worship, in the lay leadership. He brought in full immersion baptism. This priest essentially turned to the staff and to the whole congregation and said, follow me. I saw many of this guy's decisions were innovative and forward-thinking, and some people really got excited and things started to get going. And I could see ways he could have been a better listener. Could have helped if he'd have built some deeper relationships with certain people, or even explained a little better about what he was doing and why he was doing it. I mean, that was my opinion anyway. So in some ways it really started to go, and then I saw in other ways there's some people who didn't like this new direction. And maybe they could follow him a little bit, but only so far. And then some other people didn't like it at all, and they started to oppose him or left the congregation. None of these people were bad, not bad people. A lot of it comes down to the confidence that you have in that person who's in front. Were they ready to put their trust to follow that particular leader? Follow me. In our Gospels, Jesus says this repeatedly. I mean, to have Jesus say, follow me, is a pretty good summary of the Christian life. It's really simple, but that doesn't mean it isn't challenging. A little word study. You all know about acolytes. We have our wonderful acolytes here today. In Greek, the word follow is akulethe, and that's where we get the word acolytes, because the acolytes are involved in the following and in the path. The literal meaning of that word is to path join with someone, with the implication that you're behind them. So if we're going to path join with someone, there might be moments that we are walking right with them, right? Side by side, accompanying. They could be on your side. That would make sense. More often, following means that they're in front. You've given your sense over that they're going to be the ones who lead, right? That's the basic following. If we find ourselves in front of the leader, we're not following anymore. Right? If we're deciding the direction, why is it that it's sometimes so hard to follow? Can be. Well, we might not be sure of the direction that we're being led. We could say, well, I don't know. I could find a way that maybe is more fruitful or comfortable. Right? Not follow because of that. Some of it does come down to that trust in the leader. Because if there's a road ahead, maybe we can't see all the way, right? There's an unknown future. Do you have confidence in this person who's saying, follow me? Maybe we don't want to give control over. I can find my own way. I don't need their help. Following can be tricky. When Jesus first said, follow me to those Galilean fishermen, on one level, he wanted them to be his traveling companions, right? He wanted them to walk along with him. But it doesn't take much to know that invitation is something much deeper than that. Following Jesus has to do with living into his priorities and values. He has teachings to offer that in some ways turn the world upside down. To follow in his footsteps means modeling ourselves on what he says and does, not our way, but trying to conform our life to his way. So we come to today's gospel, in that wonderful gospel hymn we just sang. Jesus says, if any want to become my followers, okay, heads up, what does it mean to become his followers? He says, let them deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. Oh boy. Deny yourself. Now, it doesn't say hate yourself. It doesn't say cancel yourself out, that you don't matter. But it does have something to do with saying no to what I want. Something to do with resisting the values and pressures that society puts on us. To deny ourselves is to take a path that might be one that we wouldn't naturally pursue. And then he says, take up your cross. I think we all we're not going to take that literally, right? There's not some wooden beam we have to put on our shoulders and walk down the streets of Jerusalem. But it probably means there's going to be some sacrifice, right? There are going to be burdens and responsibilities that come our way in life. And are we ready to take them up? If we struggle for justice, if we really try to live into compassion, there's going to be some weight to that. Living into Christ's teachings to love your enemy, to turn the other cheek, these are going to be hard. And not just as individuals, but as a community as well. This path that Jesus is leading, he says, follow me on this path, can look a little tough. It seems against our natural human nature for self-preservation a little bit. Some of it really does come down to trust. Do we trust where Jesus might be leading us? In this world, there are lots of paths to choose. We actually do have free will. Okay, who do we want to follow? What path are we going to take? We also might look around in our culture. It seems often a little joyless and aimless. Okay, so what path should we take? Jesus says, follow me. And he invites us and he says, if you follow me, you're going to find fullness of life. You're going to find your deeper self. You're going to help discover spiritual meaning. That's the invitation anyway. There's a Danish writer and thinker named Søren Kierkegaard, lived in the late 1800s, and he was a devoted Christian. And Kierkegaard looked around at the church in Denmark in his day, and it was pretty sad. There was a kind of low commitment, and people were saying the Christian words and kind of going through the motions, but there was little enthusiasm. And Kierkegaard wrote a piece, and he said, Jesus wants followers, not admirers. He said, admirers gaze upon what Jesus did and said, and they're impressed. How can you not be impressed by this guy? He says amazing things. But he says that admirers then just go back to their normal lives, and when things get a little inconvenient or hard to be Christian, they pull back. When I read this essay by Kierkegaard, I felt convicted. What are ways that I am a little bit more of an admirer than a follower of Christ? Kierkegaard says, you know what a follower does? They try to become what they admire. Being a disciple is letting Jesus get a claim on you, being led in ways that you wouldn't have chosen. This Lent and Holy Week, we are invited to walk in the footsteps of Jesus. May we hear his call to follow me.